fellow compatriots, because of the significance of the basic charter of the land, it's extremely important that today we focus on why Bill 7 must be shelved. Fellow citizens, before Zambia became a republic, before our nation got independent, there are several processes that took place, that the country went through under the colonial masters. I will not dwell so much on the developments from 1924, especially when the Crown took over through to where we are today. I want to focus on 1953. I'll begin from 1953 so that I can go straight to the points that I would like young people to appreciate and all those of our citizens who care about the future of our country. 1953. There was a federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. The colonial government wanted to further cement that, to entrench that federation, to put a hold on the control of the territory on these three countries, Nyasaland, Northern Rhodesia, and Southern Rhodesia. And to do this, the colonial government, sitting in London, decided to appoint the Benson Constitutional Review Commission, Judge Benson, in 1953. That commission received the terms of reference from the government. It was the government of the United Kingdom, the colonial government, which decided on the process of the making of what they called the Constitution, which was not a constitution at all. And one thing that you need to understand from the outset is that whereas the colonial masters were talking about crafting a constitution in our republic, they themselves didn't have, and they still don't have, a written constitution. The United Kingdom does not have a written constitution, like America, India, among other big democracies. I think you know that. For them, what constitutes the constitution are actually conventions, and these are the government practices over the time, so they have maintained a system. UK doesn't have a written constitution. You need to understand that. This is very important. So they were trying to craft what was not obtained in their own country for us. This was the whole idea behind appointing the Benson Constitutional Review Commission. So in other words, that Benson Constitutional Review Commission was appointed to serve the interest of the appointing authority, and that is the colonial government, and not the citizens of Zambia. Zambia is not the United Kingdom. Zambia is not UK. You need to understand this. Zambia is not America. Zambia is not Australia. Zambia is Zambia. Zambia is for you and I who live in this country, irrespective of tribal color. We are one. So, four-sided colonialists, like Simon Mwanseka Pwepwe, Mungoni Liso, Spalo, stood up to object that Benson Review Commission because it was appointed by the British. The British used the Inquiries Act of the Laws of England, Inquiries Act, to inquire into their territory. I'm saying their territory because Zambia was a British protectorate under them, the colonial masters. So it was simply inquiring into how to manage or to operate a federation, a federal government, under them. So because it was the government that appointed the commission, therefore they were in control. They gave the terms of reference. This is what brought opposition. This is what brought cha-cha-cha. And I can assure you, that was the costliest mistake, though for our good, which the colonial government made. Nationalists broke up from the African National Congress. They formed the Zambia African National Congress, which was, of course, led by Kaunda as president, Simon Mwanseka Pwepwe as treasurer, Mainza Chona as secretary general, among others. So, that's what brought now this struggle. This is what brought cha-cha-cha. This is what brought stone throwing in the colonial, during the colonial government. Because our founding fathers, they didn't have means to procure guns. to fight because they wanted now to go into the armed struggle. All they had were stones. There are those of freedom fighters like Mr. Colonial. You remember he was awarded at the visa ceremony by President Bonawasa. He was one among the best stone throwers. That's all they had. Over this issue of the making of the Constitution, there are those who died to oppose what was meant to entrench the colonial masters' interests. So this struggle was sustained. The colonial government tried to ban the Zambia Party, as it was called, which is ZANC, Zambia African National Congress, but that didn't work. UNIP still came into focus. And this went on until 1961, when there were Lancaster discussions over the making of the Constitution in the Republic. So they bowed to pressure. In other words, that Benson Commission didn't actually succeed, strictly speaking. So now the focus was on how do they increase the African representation in the Legislative Council, what we call Parliament today. That was the main focus. By 1962, elections were held in the Republic, where finally they bowed pressure. Now, instead of coming up with a constitution, whatever you call it, they were only amending the laws to try and now, they amended the Zambia Legislative Council Order in Council. Remember, in 1924, what constituted the basic charter of the land were two pieces of orders in council. The Legislative Council Order in Council, the Executive Council Order in Council, which is the cabinet, the executive, and then legislative parliament, which we call parliament today. So, therefore, they only amended this order in council in order to increase African representation in the legislature. And that's how Kenneth Kaunda became the first prime minister before Zambia gained her independence. After the formation of a coalition government between the United National Independence Party under Kenneth Kaunda and Mr. Mwangankumbu's ANC, they formed a coalition government. And later, in 1964, our country gained independence. Now, before the granting of independence, I have to emphasize to you that the British government had to make a legal provision for the granting of independence. And they presented the Zambia Independence Bill of 1964. It was debated, and they agreed to grant us independence. That bill sailed through in the House of Commons. Now, that bill became an act of parliament, and it became the Zambia Independence Act of 1964, Section 65 of the Laws of England. This point must be understood. Not the laws of Zambia, but the laws of England. That piece of legislation is from England. It's an English piece of legislation. It's not Zambian. It was not Northern Rhodesian, it was not Zambian, but the British. And therefore, what followed after that was that the same Zambia Independence Act provided for the powers, it granted the powers to Her Majesty the Queen to issue an order in council on how the new independent republic, Zambia, was going to be governed. So the crown, when I'm saying the crown, you're talking about the royal establishment there. They sat and then they come up with royal instructions. So an order in council was issued. Zambia Independence Order in Council, which was derived from an act of parliament called the Zambia Independence Act. So that order in council, crafted by the crown, by the Queen of England, provided for regulations on how to run a new republic. And that's what was called Schedule 2. They come up with a Schedule 2. Let me repeat this. Zambia Independence Act is enacted. There was a clause which gave the Queen the powers to issue orders in council, what we can call statutory instruments. So, she used that act after signing it into law to issue a statutory instrument, for lack of a better word, which is an order in council in this case. Now, that order in council had Schedule 2. It's like a minister issues or the president issues an SI, and then that SI has a schedule to say these are the bus fares, new bus fares. Because you can't go to parliament to go and the men talking about bus fares. So those are regulations that are given. So in other words, ministers or the president, they are given what we call subsidiary delegated the power to legislate. It is no wonder Parliament has a committee on delegated legislation in order to check, to ensure that those that are given delegated powers to legislate do not go outside the parameters or the parameters that constitute the main focus of the main statute as conferred by Parliament on them. So this is what the Queen did. So that Schedule 2 is what provided now for many articles. First of all, Article 10 declared that the first president shall be Kenneth Kaunda. And then it provided for Part 3, talking about the Bill of Rights. It provided for a strong government, the powers of the president. The same powers that the Governor General had were maintained in the Zambian president. So because they wanted a strong president who was friendly to them, who was going to be user-friendly to them. That's what they wanted. Because some of the nationalists were very clear that upon granting of independence, all corporations, there was going to be a program to bring about African renaissance. There was going to be a program to entrench Pan-Africanism in our roots, in every sector. And obviously, the British were interested in protecting their own investments. So they wanted someone who was not as radical as other nationalists. That's the whole idea. So now, here's the beginning of the drama. In that same Schedule 2, they provided for a clause, there was a clause, a referendum clause, that to amend any of the clauses in that Schedule 2, the government of Zambia should call for a referendum. In other words, they must put a yes or no vote for anything they wanted to change in that Schedule 2. So, Dr. Kenneth Kaunda, aware of the NIP government, let me not call personalities, let me say the NIP government, aware of their instabilities, aware that they didn't have a mandate which was popularly given to them at independence. Because what should have happened is, like other countries, the moment the proclamation of independence was done, countries went to elections. Botswana went to elections. And Teresa Kama one became the first president. India went to elections. All countries, America, because America was once also ruled by the British. The moment there was a proclamation of independence, they went to elections. Zambia didn't have the immediate post-independence elections to elect a president. Instead, it became constitutional for Kaunda to be the first president of Zambia. How can you call that a constitution, that piece of shit, as I've been saying? It's like we say, let's come up with a constitution in Zambia, and then we say the first president shall be Chishimba. Is that normal? And you call that a constitution? Which constitution on earth names who shall be the first president? So it was constitutional, therefore, at independence, for President Kenneth Kaunda to be the first president. It was written in that piece of shit. And this country proceeded to independence under such a problematic kind of legal provision, which is foreign, with its foreign roots in the United Kingdom. So now, within 4 years of gaining of independence, just before elections, because elections now are going to be held in 1969, what did the NIP government do? The NIP government, under President Kenneth Kaunda, used a British law called the Inquiries Act, the same Inquiries Act which the colonial government used, to inquire into the removal of that referendum clause. Because what they wanted was, because there are some clauses that the government wanted to change, so they started mutilating that piece of shit to entrench their powers, to hold on to power. So they wanted to remove that clause, the referendum clause. So campaigns were held. Of course, others were opposing. No, you can't remove that referendum clause. What must happen now is that we, the people of Zambia, must meet in a constituent assembly to craft the basic charter of the land, to craft the constitution, because that was not a constitution. This thing that we have maintained until now, it's not a constitution. Zambia doesn't have a constitution. Zambia is still being governed by the Zambia Independence Act of 1964, Section 5 of those of England, itself which gave the Queen the power to issue an order in council. So we are still being governed by an order in council of a foreign queen, of a foreign government. And using the same order in council, they drafted this schedule, the one which we have maintained, we have been calling it a constitution. What kind of piece of rubbish is this? What kind of thinking is this, fellow citizens? Can't we be angry for once and decide to deliver to the people, to deliver to ourselves a charter that will rise above personalities, a charter that will guarantee the rule of law, a charter that to give assurances to each and every person in Zambia that they are equal shareholders, that each one has one share in the republic called Zambia. No single citizen, president or common person, minister, rich, poor, no single person has two shares in the republic. We all have only one share. Zambia is our republic. It's not an enterprise belonging to any particular person or any group of people. It belongs to all of us. And you are equally responsible to the republic. So, the people of Western Province, because the people of Western Province were more educated, they were more graduates in Western Province than any other part of the country. So they understood what that Schedule 2 meant, that the moment that clause was removed, then it would give now the government the leeway to maintain it and to abuse it and to entrench themselves. Western Province voted no. All the provinces of Zambia voted yes. We must salute Northwestern Province for having tried to save the republic when they said no to that. So that's how that clause was removed. And now, the UNIP government eventually started imitating that Schedule 2, giving it legitimacy as if it were the basic charter of the land, of which no citizen, no freedom fighter, none of our founding fathers popularly participated in the crafting of that Schedule 2. In 1972 to 73, thereabout, just before the elections again, aware that the UNIP government wouldn't survive after what happened when Simon Masaka Pwepwe quit government and formed the UPP. And then there were by-elections, of course. And then the first act of violence, as I have been saying, happened under UNIP, political violence. Beating members of the opposition, of UPP, including beating members of ANC. And what did they do? They stopped them from campaigning. And therefore, UNIP went into an election without the opposition campaigning. Now we see the same culture. Even a few years ago, the same culture. The same mentality being applied. Can't we mature? Can't we say, let us progress as a nation? We can't apply the same tactics. Where you use the ECZ, use all these institutions of government, the police, the judiciary, in order to impose what you want on the people. In so far as I'm concerned, this is the biggest betrayal of the struggle. This is the biggest betrayal of the republic. This is the biggest betrayal to those men and women who fought for freedom, who delivered this liberty that we have today. And in so far as I'm concerned, this kind of attitude brings a lot of complications. There is no one can be blessed after leaving power, because whatever begins must end. The Bible says so. Whatever begins must end. There's nothing that begins on earth that has no end. Rulers have come, they have gone. The moment you begin to think that we are only here on a mission for God, this will bring humility. This will bring accountability. Who knew that some of the most powerful presidents would lie at Embers Park? Powerlessly. They're in the graves. So we need to look at life beyond ourselves. No human being was made to live for himself or for herself. Every morning we must ask ourselves, why are we here today? And we need to think of those people who doesn't have the power that we have, to deliver hope to them, in order for us to have a share in Olam Abba, as we say in Hebrew, in the world to come. That is what we must be preoccupied with. So the UNIP government appointed the Chona Commission of Inquiry. Again, the government used the Inquiries Act, the British Inquiries Act, which the Colonial government used, a British law, which the UNIP government used in 1968, and then they used it again in 1972 to appoint the Chona Commission of Inquiry. Who crafted the terms of reference? The government, the UNIP government, the executive. What are the terms of reference? To inquire on how to operate one-party state. So in other words, cabinet meets and decides that we are going to have one-party state. The people of Zambia didn't decide that they wanted one-party state. The sitting government decided we are going to have one-party state, which was a one-party dictatorship. And the Chona Commission of Inquiry went to the people to go and collect submissions on the basis of the terms of reference that the government so gave to the Commission of Inquiry. So it was decided already by the cabinet. And after the Commission of Inquiry submitted the findings, the people of Zambia were magnanimous enough. They didn't want to be limited to what government wanted. Instead, they began to touch on many things. Firstly, they said, it's about time that we exercise our sovereignty by having a constituent assembly to craft for ourselves a homegrown constitution. In the constitutional law, we call it constitutional autonomy, constitutional sovereignty, a homegrown constitution. Just like all other countries, these voices came from all the corners of Zambia, all the constituencies. Every corner of Zambia said it's about time that Zambia held a constituent assembly. Meaning, in a constituent assembly, the executive has no control, parliament has no control, judicial has no control. It's the people of Zambia that elect a chairperson of this assembly. And they receive submissions from the people. Then they craft this charter and enact it without even having to make references to colonial masters. We need to put a break to this. So all those progressive submissions that the people made were removed. Government came up with a white paper to maintain what they wanted, one-party state. They went to parliament, they used parliament, and parliament enacted the law, which outlawed all political parties. UNIP became the only political party. And President Kenneth Kaunda started standing with a flag for all those years of dictatorship. 17 years of dictatorship. Then, as I said, much as the government appeared to have survived that, because the focus now was no longer on national development. The focus on self-preservation. The moment political leaders begin to look at how they are going to manipulate the law or the process to preserve themselves in power, they stop working. They stop focusing on solving the problems. The strategy becomes to manipulate the law to maintain ourselves, and not to maintain the focus on the people. Any leadership that begins to preserve itself stops to focus on the people. They no longer look at how they're going to deliver on the mandate, because they're looking at how they're going to use the power that they have to maintain the same power and to perpetuate what they want, which will not be national interest. In 1990, President Kaunda again used the Inquiries Act to appoint the Vunga Commission of Inquiry. Terms of reference, to revert to multiparty democracy. Again, the cabinet decided. Again, the people of Zambia rose above the limitations of the terms of reference. They still made the same submissions which they made the Chona Commission in 1972. The government didn't mind about all that, because the preoccupation was to go back quickly to multiparty democracy. We went to the elections, the MMD government rose to power. And everything was normal. If you look at the MMD government then, under President Chishimba, the MMD government transformed the country under a year. Before they started selling state assets, by the way. They liberalized the transport sector. They removed the taxes, that no duty, no VAT, no import duty, no import duty, no import VAT on buses. Suddenly, Zambians became owners of mini buses and other bigger buses. The transport problem was solved under here. The goods, the shortages of goods, ordinary bread, cooking oil, all these things were solved under a year. So you don't need more than 1 year to deliver as a government. In a year, there's something you can deliver to show the people to, not just in words. There's something that you can deliver to transform the republic. And there's this notion, we in the people have been saying, it's time to scrap off. Pay as you earn must go. Scrap off pay as you earn. There are more than 15 countries where there's no pay as you earn. Scrap off pay as you earn. When the people have more money in their pockets, they will buy more. When they buy more, factories will produce more. When they produce more, they employ more people. So the government must be looking at a profit-based kind of taxation. And broaden the revenue collection base. Countries that have done this, they have collected more revenues. They have accelerated their development paths. So these are basics. And Zambia has done this before. When the moment the government scrapped off import duty and VAT on buses for that a year or 2 year period, they collected even more revenues. Because as more mini buses came, remember, people were paying road tax. They were paying fitness. So there was more revenue which came from that. They are buying more fuel. more revenue was going to the republic. So Zambia in that year collected more. Now there are those with the cobweb kind of mentality who are saying, no, I have this type of tax. Oh, tax is revenue. It worked. We had ministers of finance who are quite revolutionary and focused. So, what I'm saying is that when government focus was on development, we saw changes taking place. Basic schools being built across the country. The health sector being transformed. Talk about each and every minister was known for something. Michael Sata, look at what Michael Sata did when he was local government. He started building mesa flats. All this in a year, couple of years. Construction projects, low-cost housing across the country under Michael Sata as Minister of Local Government. He went to health, he transformed the health sector. There are some people, you were a minister before. There is nothing today that you can point to show the people that this is what I did as a minister. Except your stomach. If you went with, you can check more. That's all you can show. And how much you store, that's what you can show. If you didn't have an apartment, now you can show me an apartment you had. That's all you are showing. So, the moment Dr. Kenneth Kaunda came back that he was going to run for power, quickly, the government appointed the Manakate Constitutional Review Commission. Again, President Chishimba used the same Inquiries Act of England. And that Manakate was given terms of reference by the government. People opposed that Manakate. That it's time to have, we have enough submissions. We submitted in 1972. We submitted in 1990. Why can't we, and the people of Zambia have been saying the same things consistently. Why can't we go to that? And instead, let's have a Constituent Assembly to craft this charter. They didn't listen. Instead, they were focused now on power preservation. And in that year, state assets were now being sold for close to nothing. Zambia was being grounded. The mining corporation, and then they were saying, no, mining companies were making a loss. Where in the yellow books? Go and check in the yellow books. Where in the yellow books does it show the state funding the mines? All those were lies. Dairy Produce Board, Moiseni stores, NIEC, all these things just started getting grounded. We even had Memako trading internationally on the metal exchange market. Zambia reached that stage, like Singapore. Singapore is one of the financial centers of the world. We just destroyed everything that this country built. All state-owned enterprises just went to the drain just like that overnight. You are now selling. They were just merely selling things. And they're focusing on the preservation of the power. And they focus on the stopping Kaunda. So they put a clause. To be president of Zambia, both parents must be Zambians. To focus on the one man Kenneth Kaunda. They amended the entire constitution. It's not a constitution, by the way, that said true, in order to bar Kaunda. We went into the second term under Chishimba. Chishimba left the power. Mwanasa lost to power. What did he do? Mwanasa appointed also his own commission of inquiry. The Mungomba Commission of Inquiry. Again, people try to object to that please, look at the Chona, look at the Mvunga, look at the Manakatwe. The people of Zambia have been saying the same things consistently. Why can't we simply go to a Constituent Assembly? Mwanasa said, no. In case there are new views. He went ahead, arrogantly appointed the Mungomba Commission of Inquiry. The same submissions that were made in 1972 under Chona, 1990 under Mvunga, 1995, 1960 about under Manakatwe, the same things came in the Mungomba. Everything that people... Now, I think after these submissions, I think it was clear to President Mwanasa as a lawyer that it was time to do something right. So he said, okay, instead of calling it a Constituent Assembly, we shall call it a Constitutional Conference. There will be a conference that will decide. That was progressive. Unfortunately, he died. Rupia Banda rose to power. He maintained the same principle. Unfortunately, he didn't get it to be done because, remember, we were going towards the elections. So people they couldn't trust any government when it was towards the elections. Just like Chishimba, who tried to manipulate the process just before because wanted to amend, to put a clause that could go for a third term. It was towards the elections. People rose. And he didn't succeed. Then President Sata rose to power. What did he do? He wanted to appoint a commission of inquiry. I think people objected to that. So instead, he appointed a technical committee to review. President Sata died. Mr. Lungu rose to power. Remember, under Rupia Banda, submissions actually continued under that conference which he appointed. In terms of trying to come up now, to come up with. Artist Zambia was almost there to end this kind of situation that we've been in. But we didn't get there. So President Lungu, instead, because knowing that we are talking about a constitution, it cannot be in piecemeals. So he separated and said, okay, for part 3, that one, during the 2016 elections, what will happen is that people will be voting on that part, not 2016, I think that was by 2021, that people will be voting on the Bill of Rights, as well as voting on these other parts that are under controversy. But whatever the case, the point I'm still trying to drive is that this was wrong. Then we had the 2016 constitution, so-called constitution. Now, which is still now law today. So, let me now go backwards like this. The 2016 Act, Constitution of Zambia, Act of Parliament. Remember, Act of Parliament, that's what it's called. The Constitution of Zambia, Act of Parliament, they didn't put a number, of 2016. Itself is a product of the Constitution of Zambia 1986 Act of Parliament, which is a product of the 1990 Constitution of Zambia Act of Parliament, which is a product of the 1972 Constitution of Zambia Act of Parliament. Itself a product of the Zambia Independence Act, Section 65 of the Laws of England, which birthed the Order in Council, Zambia Independence Order in Council, and then the Schedule 2. So this is Schedule 2 that I've maintained. And we call ourselves independent. How do you call that a constitution? Which constitution? Have you ever heard in America? They call Constitution of America Act of Parliament. Parliament cannot decide on the making of a constitution. The executive cannot decide on these matters because Parliament is created by the Constitution. A baby who is in the womb of a pregnant woman cannot decide on the character of the mother. The mother of all laws is the Constitution. How can it be called an Act of Parliament? Acts of Parliament must be derived from the Constitution. And then SIs from the Acts of Parliament. That's what must happen. Now here we are. We have something which is a product of a certain instrument, a product of an order in council. That's what you have maintained, and we are calling it the Constitution. Why is our case different? Botswana went to a Constituent Assembly, and they don't talk about Constitution anymore. No one talks about this nonsense of Constitution. Namibia, no one talks about it. India, no one talks about it. All countries that were which were once under the British, they don't talk about these things. Because this is sacrosanct, it's sacred. You cannot be talking about this piece of every time whoever comes, let me have one constitution. As if it's your farm or your corporation. Zambia is not anyone's farm or anyone's individual company. It belongs to all of us. And now, this brings us now to this Bill 7. The PF tried to bring Bill 10. And what were they saying? No, because we want to provide also for the disabled, we want to provide for the... We appreciate about all this, but we are talking about the disabled. We are talking about youth, we are talking about women. All these are rights that must be entrenched. If you talk about human rights, it cuts across. You don't need to have a constitution which is a big volume. Look at the Constitution of America. It's a small document. It's straight to the point. India, same thing. You can't put everything in the Constitution. No, you need to touch on the broad themes. First of all, the Constitution must be clear in terms of governance. The limits of the executive, the limits of Parliament, protecting security of tenure for the judiciary. You cannot have a situation where whoever becomes president, he must have a way to remove judges and appoint his own judges or own judges. This is very dangerous. And this is not good for the economy. Because investors will fear. If today we sit down to look at the number of investments that have come to the country, most of them are by lip service. Investors. They are not investing. They are reading. They are looking at this is a dangerous country. If before passing judgment, the judge can be removed and appoint another judge who is friendly to you, and then you give that judge instructions, can you pass all these kind of things? I'm talking about a situation hypothetically, that if I appoint a judge, and I tell that judge what I want that judge to do, that's what's going to happen. We have seen these things happen. These are abuses. These are things that must be addressed in this charter. You cannot just wake up and remove a judge. The judicature is the ultimate center for resolution of disputes fairly. And every investor, every foreigner, every national must feel safe. They must be tried before an impartial judiciary. That's why members of the bench must be adequately provided for, must be adequately cared for. They must enjoy the security of tenure. We don't want a situation where every government that comes, it comes with its own judges. We want those men and women on the bench to be protected, to know that they are there, to stick the letters of the law. Which investor will come to a country where they know that every year, every time there's a new government, they change the constitutions? I wouldn't go to such a country. These are questions that we must ask ourselves. If the attempts under the Benson failed, if Kaunda's attempt, it's like he succeeded but eventually failed, if it were failed, if the PF failed, what makes the current government think that they succeed with Bill 7? The anger that we are causing the nation is too much. And the anger which is building up in the nation is like a volcano. When anger builds up, the limitations that are imposed on the executive or these wings of government are not imposed on the people. Let me say this point clearly. When in that Schedule 2, there's a clause which says, we the people of Zambia, by our parliament. In fact, it shouldn't be by our parliament. Now they have been putting by our parliament because it came from the House of Commons, the parliament. It shouldn't be like that. But that's how it's worded. By our parliament, give to ourselves this constitution. So whatever the case, let me say this. It does not make the people of Zambia functus officio, meaning it doesn't make them like ex-officials. They are still part of the running of the government. Limitations on the executive, on the judiciary, on parliament don't apply to the people of Zambia. The people of Zambia can demand justice at any time. The people of Zambia can demand order, can demand delivery of services, and nobody can stop them. Because this is their republic. We cannot continue to take things for granted, the people for granted. What is so difficult about focusing on deliverables? Because before you form government, you are aware of the issues. That's why you go to campaign. We will solve electricity problems. We will deliver free education. And we commend you. You deliver free education. I think within a year. Now, what is difficult about going ahead to deliver even more on other things? That must be the path. Stick to what you promised. If you promised to ensure that you increase in terms of inputs to farmers, give more inputs to farmers. Don't wait for election years. Be consistent in doing all these things. We can't be singing about alternative sources of energy for 4 years. This is an emergency. What are you doing as a minister? Every morning you wake up. What are you doing? Because first of all, let me say this. Because of tampering with the judiciary, this tampering with the judiciary, selective application of the law, deciding who must be prosecuted. Sometimes when killing businesses, there are many credible people who are running businesses who are big employers. You just target them because you want to remove them out of competition and so forth. What we have, you transform even important bodies like the SEC into the Anti-Competition Commission. Drug Enforcement Commission, SEC, all these are under state capture. We We've seen what has been happening. Where sometimes whoever becomes president, it has happened before. They want to move the DPP. They want to... Why can't we put a stop to this? These are important offices. Now it's because what we have is an act of parliament. Mind you, an act of parliament is appended, it's a separate president who signs. If you're talking about a constitution, it needs not be appended to in terms of signature by the president. It's the assembly that must adopt it. The people's assembly. The president can sign an act of parliament, yes. Not on the constitution. It belongs to the people. People must meet as a free independent people. Appoint a chairperson of that Constitutional Assembly and then craft and enact this basic charter of the land. We cannot emphasize more the fact that the constitution is not just a legal document, it's a basic charter. It's a reflection of the collective vision of each and every citizen. It binds us together. It's a rule book. There shouldn't be any personalities. If I'm going for interviews, it doesn't matter whether I know somebody. If I'm tendering for a contract, I don't need to know anybody. Because the system must be such that it inspires confidence, transparency, and accountability. For instance, let's talk about the SEC and the Drug Enforcement Commission. We can entrench it in the best charter of the land that members of the SEC will come from 1, the academia, 2, women, 3, youth. When we do this, it means that the members of the commission will not be appointed by the politicians who are the chief corrupt people. The corrupt are appointing people to prosecute, to preside over stopping corruption. The people who are defined by the very corruption, the people who through corruption, some of them go to wherever they are. They are the ones now who are presiding over corruption. What corruption can they preside over? When the history is embedded in shame and lack of patriotism and love of nation. When President Lungu signed that 2016 so-called constitution, that on Schedule 2, on the same day, we had a news conference and we said, cursed be the day, this day, that this signature has been appended on that piece of shit. It's about time that we start looking at reclaiming this nation's glory. Zambia was among the ticking nations from 64 to 1972, thereabout actually. Liu Kwan, the first Prime Minister of Singapore, sent a team to Zambia to go and copy the model in Zambia. The Zambian currency was one-on-one with the British pound. It was stronger than the dollar. I want the young people to know this. The Zambian currency, the kwacha, was on one-on-one with the British pound. The dollar was weaker. We were once there. Liu Kwan came and copied. He went back to Singapore. He transformed Singapore. But we keep regressing. What kind of a country are we? We can't be talking about this electricity crisis for 4 years. 4 years is too much time. And after all, you knew about these problems beforehand. Reducing the cost of living, you presented the same way you delivered on free education. We encourage you, reduce the cost of fuel. You presented all these presentations. In fact, before the current government even presented about the cost plus model, we were the first. Now, except that for them that the bigger voice, they were ahead. We said, how do you put, first of all, in the cost of fuel, you put excise duty, they put dealer fee, they put fuel reserve fee. When you look at that, there are some of the provisions that are nonsensical there. What are they doing there? Why should people pay road tax? Because when you're buying a liter, every liter, there is tax. The same road tax is paid on every vehicle. You are paying road tax. What kind of double taxation nonsense is in this country? Only a vehicle, there is road tax. Fuel, there is road tax. How can people remain with income? When you sack them, you suck up money from their pockets and you expect the economy to survive. These are pertinent questions that we must ask ourselves. Remove all these kind of things. This is doable. You have an instrument of power. The people of Zambia gave you the power to deliver to them. It's as simple as that. Let each minister speak to the deliverables. Minister of Finance, speak to the deliverables. How do you make it easier in terms of taxation? What if it's easier for you to give tax holidays to foreign firms, multinational corporations, who are in the business of price transferring to evade taxation? They're literally ripping up this country. Why can't it be easy to give the same breathing space to Zambian workers? Why can't it be easy to look at those Zambian entrepreneurs, Zambian enterprises that are struggling, to protect jobs and give them incentives? We can learn from Barack Obama. Barack Obama, at the time that the economy, there was this global credit crunch, you remember that? What did he do? Many corporations, in fact, not many, let me say all companies in America, they were given a boost, a stimulus package, removed some of these taxations, gave them the space, and for sure, that stimulated growth. You cannot talk about the growth of the economy when everything you're doing is anti-growth. How do you expect corporations, companies to survive without electricity? No, buy solar. Buy solar. Have you given them the money to buy solar? No, 2 hours is enough. Which 2 hours is enough? Did you find the 2 hours? 40% 2 hours is enough. No, we have a drought. Is this the first drought in Zambia? Are you normal, you people? Is this the first drought? Or you didn't know that droughts do happen before you rose to power? What do you call it? Whatever you call it. Look at the number of people lost jobs from all these US-funded agencies. Some of them were in very important positions, life-saving positions. What plans did you have to try and maintain those? Because you need to have all these measures plans to save jobs as the government. And you need to be more creative to do all these kind of things. You are the best of local government. How are you speaking to those? It's not just enough to say we have given CDF. Because that CDF, if the funds are not hitting the local economies, it will not benefit the people. We have increased CDF. The people of Zambia need not just increasing CDF. Instead, take the financing fully to where the people are. Give equal allocation. You are talking about sharing the national cake equally. This is what you said. I didn't say it. You said it before you formed government. What is difficult now? Take these resources, in fact, not just CDF, all kinds of financing across sectors. Take to where the people are. Let money hit local economies. Don't decide on procurement. You are saying CDF is going to constituencies, and then you are deciding we are going to buy police vehicles. We are going to buy CDF vehicles. You are centralizing everything because you want to do procurement. This entrepreneurship has killed this country. Local authorities are tender authorities on their own. Each local authority is a tender authority. You mean if the people of Chipata municipality, the people of Choma, Monze, they want to procure an ambulance, should it take the Ministry of Local Government of Stupidity to procure for them? Let them decide what they want. Let young people access those financing. In fact, in a government which is functional, properly functional, and speaking to indicators, because you need to speak to indicators. If I am president, every minister must be reporting to me on the basis of indicators with means of verification. I need to verify. Every government must be in the business of delivering on the promises. What are you doing as a minister? Minister of Commerce, Minister of Energy, Minister of Science and Technology. You need to be reporting that by the end of this year, by the end of the year, if it's only two youth groups that have access to equipment, you must project by the end of the year, 200,000 young people must have equipment. And begin to do all these connections. It's not enough just have state functions. Go to Israel, go to countries that have the technologies. Bring this technological transfer. Why should it be difficult for a minister? If you are going to China, wherever you are going, go for something sensible. I don't support China. But go to something sensible. Go to America. Go to countries where there's technology. Go and negotiate that. Please look. We have gold mines in Zambia. We have plenty of gold. We have 10,000 youth cooperatives that have been given licenses to mine gold, to mine emeralds. Now, go and talk to companies with equipment. Come to Zambia, please. You partner with these cooperatives. There are people with money, investment funds. If you have run out of ideas, let them partner with those young people. Let them bring the equipment. Young people in charge, they bring the equipment. They put blockchain technology to monitor what is being produced. The government gets its revenues. Young people get their shares. Those people who brought equipment, they are paid back with a return on investment, ROI. Where are you people? I don't know. You are a minister. You wake up in the morning. What do you do? Why can't you think? What kind of thinking do you people have? These things are achievable. You don't need more than a year to deliver on these things. If you have run out of ideas, come and consult us. We are Zambians, very patriotic. We will tell you humble opinions that please try this, it is going to work out. I don't want to go into much details, but it's a particular country. Some of us, I spoke about something. They code. That's why sometimes they disappear. I go, the same idea, they implemented it, it worked. About 2-3 countries. We have businesses. It worked. Now the problem is that when you have the power, you don't have the monopoly. You are not the owner of that kind of wisdom. There are people in this country with a lot of wisdom. If you care about solving this issue of electricity, why haven't you seen an emergency style kind of response? First of all, this must have been declared as a national disaster from the beginning. Because you are talking about lives. Stable supply of power to hospitals, stable supply of power to industries. People have no jobs. Industries are closing. Those people, imagine when power comes sometimes for 1 hour, in the night, young people are waking and start running machines. You are turning people into pulu hours. There must be something that must be done internally. There is need for internal re-engineering. I'm talking about the internal administration of the governing party. There must be a re-engineering and a refocusing, a realignment, a retooling, and a focus on deliverables. The people of Zambia have an understanding. But if you're not focusing on deliverables, you're not focusing on key points, what you'll be doing is just munguru. Then why are you there? And then because you have not delivered, now I want to look at the colonial methods, like this stupid Bill 7. Forget about this issue of Bill 7. There are more urgent issues. What is urgent now? If you care about giving the constitution after the elections, let the next government, if the same government is going to be maintained by the way of, that's what Zambians want, that's when they can sit down and talk about now putting an end to this piece of shit, the Schedule 2, which is not a constitution. These are serious national issues that we must be focusing on. These are important, salient points that we must focus on as a country, as a republic. It doesn't help to enlist people, foreign people, release the system, or go and kill that one, or find a to kill that one. It has never solved the problems. We need to face issues head on. We need to discuss, we need to debate. If what I'm saying is making sense, pick something. You remember at one time President Mwanawasa showed us how a president can listen to the opposition without even talking. President Mwanawasa, he was so passionate about bringing a change. What did he do? He looked at the UPND manifesto under Mazoka. It was very progressive. What did he do? He started implementing the UPND manifesto, all the ideas. President Mazoka complained, you remember. It was everyone. No. This is our idea. Mwanawasa is doing our idea. He was just doing those ideas. And it worked with Mundias Katana, one of the best ministers of agriculture in Zambia. Winter maize, everything was like, things worked. Remember, Zambia's debt forgiven. Mwanawasa, you people, we can learn from all these winning ways. And this is extremely important. These are things that we must be looking at in the putting of the public on the correct path for the sake of all. Bill 7 is not an emergency. Let us focus on all these priorities that are going to put food on the tables of each and every home. A focus on jobs. A focus on letting the people of Zambia be in charge of their own destiny. Thank you.